Hello, my fellow comic book collectors, and this is finally the top 10 of my top 50 comic of all time. My top 50 list of my favorite comics in my collection. This is part 5 of my series. I recommend you check out my other 4 parts. There's some really great comics in there, but this is the big finale. This is the top 10. And I just wanted to show you some of my favorite comics, and because it is the finale, there's going to be a lot of bonuses. So I'm going to show some other cool things that are related to these comics that I have, and I hope that you find the final top 10 as cool as I do. And let's get into the comics. So the very first one is House of Secrets 92, which is the first appearance of Swamp Thing, and it's just a brilliant cover. It's a brilliant story, brilliant cover, just a great comic overall. And mine is restored, which is kind of sad, but it's only a slight restoration. Some color touch was done to the cover. It is one of those things where I really love the cover, especially. I really like the story too. It's a really brilliant story. It's one that I definitely recommend you read. It's kind of situation where you got the Swamp Thing, and he's kind of coming in. It looks like he's coming in. You can see the moon, the full moon in the background, so it's that creepy mood. And it's like, wow, you think, oh, he's gonna kill the girl. He's there to attack the girl, which is kind of the misconception of the story. But it's actually her husband that's the one that's the real threat. So it's just a really great story, and you see her looking over her shoulder. It's just, I love when the comic really tells the story. The cover tells that story, and it sort of sets you up for what to expect inside the comic. It makes you want to buy it, and I just really like the colors on it. It's just a really great Bernie Wrightson comic. He's such a brilliant artist. He did the first few of the Swamp Thing series as well, and he was just a really great series. It was a really great series by him. Actually, I have the complete series. You can see Swamp Thing over my shoulder, Swamp Thing #1, and I also have the one with Constantine in it as well. So I'm a big Swamp Thing fan. I watched the TV series. My son really enjoyed it too, so that was something that we always joke about as well. I always joke about how great Constantine is, and he'll always say, "Oh, Constantine sucks," and that he likes Swamp Thing better. So it's sort of a joke between the two of us. So I have a lot of nostalgia around Swamp Thing. So it's just one of those really great comics in my mind. So to get Swamp Thing's first appearance, to get a really great cover and a really great story, it's just the best of all worlds, really. So it's one of my favorite. This is one of my top 10 favorite comics. Next on my list is a different one. It'll actually kind of set up a theme for this top 10 list. I'm a big collector of Warren Publishing. Now, if you're not familiar with Warren Publishing, you will be after this video, because several of the top 10 on this list are from Warren Publishing. And Warren Publishing, just so you know, is the company that produced Famous Monsters, Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella. And they also produced 1984, The Rook, Help magazine. They did a whole bunch of cool things, and they had some of the best artists in the world doing their artwork. So they had William Dubé, they had Frank Frazetta, San Julian, just these amazing artists that were doing some just amazing artwork. And it was just, they were huge back in the day. This is going back into the 50s, and they really ran all the way up into the 80s, and then they disappeared. So it was one of those things where Warren Publishing was just this big force within the magazine era, when you couldn't put, more adult related content into comics, you would have to put them into magazines. So Warren was kind of the one that kind of dominated that space. It was magazine comics. So where you could, have nudity, you could have a little bit more serious comics. And one of the comics that they produced was one that was called Eerie. And what happened was there's actually kind of a cool story behind it, was they were so desperate to get the rights to Eerie before anyone else, that they created almost like a pamphlet. It was very, like, they produced like maybe 200 of these, really rare. And usually there's actually lots of frauds of this. So I actually got it from a very reputable dealer, and he got it from the personal collection of the publisher. So he actually knew them. So I know that it's a mint version. Just to give you a sense, this, in this condition probably sells for about $1,000. So it's a fairly pricey little piece of paper. But it's like, I think it's only like 20 pages long. It's Eerie #1, and it was just purely done to get that copyright, to get that control over the name Eerie. And they produced it really quickly. This is going back into the early 60s. And it was just a really great comic. I paid $200 for it, you can see. But yeah, and it's just, you can sort of get a sense of what the artwork is like. You can see a sense that almost like EC style horror genre artwork. And so Eerie kind of carried the torch while the whole Comic Code Authority was going on, and was a way that they could still produce those really cool horror stories, even when the comics couldn't. So to have this kind of rare piece of history is kind of cool in my mind. And I'm a big collector of Warren. I have every single magazine that they ever produced in the US. And I even have all of their I have most of their foreign issues, I should say. There's a few that are still escaping me that I'm searching for. But I have most of their foreign stuff too. They produced in many different countries, in Japan and Sweden and Chile and Argentina and Mexico, and like all over the place, in Spain. They're all over the place. And I collected all those. So with that in mind, I want to show you some of the other cool things related to this comic. And that's what I'm saying. There's bonuses in this finale. So I even have, like, they had a fan club. I can show you. This is their fan club thing. So this is like in the 60s. If you're a big fan of Eerie, you could sign up for the fan club and you get like one of these little cards. And it's a really rare thing. And it's rare that it's not filled out. So this is really rare. So that's that. And they even had, like, you could get like you could send away for it, and you could get like a patch that you could sew onto your clothing with Eerie. And I also have the creepy fan club membership card. So I collect everything. I have all their memorabilia. I have the posters, pretty much everything that they're offering to people to buy. So I have a pretty awesome collection actually of these things. And then they even had gold rings. So I'm going to show you their gold. When I say gold, I use that term very loosely because they're just gold plated. It's like very cheaply done. So that's Cousin Eerie and Uncle Creepy. So I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll try to zoom in on it so you can see the faces. And these are really rare. Even at the time when the magazine was published, you had to spend some big money to buy these. I think even in the 70s, these were over $100. So you can imagine how how few of them got sold. But so they're very rare, these rings. So that's kind of part of the cool part of collecting for me, is getting all those little extra things that make the collection more complete. So I really love Eerie and Creepy and all those ones. I've read all the issues. I have all the issues. So it's one of those things that I really like and enjoy. So the next one on my list is this set. Now, when I got back into collecting during the 90s, there was a sort of a phase that was going on. It was the bad girl phase of comics. And one of the things that got me into collecting was seeing these really awesome covers. And the one that I thought was the coolest, maybe sexiest too, was Lady Death. And so this is one that I really wanted. And at the time, it was a pricey book. This, they were asking crazy prices because everybody wanted it. It was very low publishing numbers, like just really hard to get. And I really liked it. It's one of those shiny metallic covers. It's just really sexy too. And this was the hot book back in the 90s, early 90s. Like, this was the one that everybody wanted. It was like, everyone was like chasing around to get. And it wasn't like we had the internet back then. So to get it, you had to get it from like, your local comic book shop. And if they sold out, tough luck. It was really hard to get. And it was one that I missed out on. Actually, it was supposed to be in my pull list. The guy that was running the shop, he was a bit shady because he knew that it was going to be a hot book. He took it from my pull list, and he basically sold it for like $40 instead of cover, which was what I was going to pay for it. So it was one of those hot books, and it was really hard to get. So when I got it back in the 90s. I treasured it. It was like the book. And actually, I treasured it so much that I got 2 copies. I was just so keen on this book. And I really was keen on the character. I really liked the story about Lady Death. I just thought she was incredibly sexy. I thought she was just like this really cool character. So I got 2 copies of her, number 1. But I wanted to go further. I always, try to go further with comics. And I also got Lady Death's first appearance, which was in Evil Ernie number 1. So this is where Lady Death makes her first appearance, and she's part of the main storyline for Evil Ernie. Evil Ernie wasn't as popular as Lady Death because she was much sexier. So she really, her whole, run was much more popular. So Evil Ernie was, though, the first appearance of Lady Death. And this comic is actually kind of one that's kind of significant for that early 80s bad girl story and art because it kind of started that whole bad girl thing. Like, Lady Death was one of the key bad girl comics of that time period, and there was a bunch. They were all sort of really, really popular, but Lady Death was one that kind of really drove the industry. So this was a big comic. Another thing that I got with Lady Death was her hardcover. This is the hardcover edition of Lady Death. So you can see that I was a big Lady Death fan. So this is the hardcover Lady Death. So yeah, so I have actually the complete collection of Lady Death. But these were some of the ones that I treasured. So next on my list is, which one was it? I gotta make sure I pull out the right book. I don't want to mess up my order. I believe it's this one. So this is another one that I really like, and it's really for the cover art. It's just that Good Girl art, Ginger number 1. This is a really rare comic, really hard to find, and mine's actually in a fairly high grade, and it's just one of my favorite covers of all time. I just think it's really cute. Like, I like the fact that she's crushing on her teacher. It's that whole schoolgirl, good girl art. It's just really great. I actually really like good girl art. So from the 50s. So and I believe this is from early 50s. So yeah, just a really great comic. So yeah, so Ginger number 1, and it's purely for the cover. It's just a really, really brilliant cover. It's just one of my favorite covers of all time. Okay, and with that being said, we'll get into the next ones, which is a little different. So it's Good Girl. So we went from Bad Girl to Good Girl to cartoons. I don't know why. my collecting is the most, diverse that there is. It's just, I go all over the place. So the next one on my list is this one, Donald Duck on Bear Mountain. It's called Christmas on Bear Mountain, and it's 4-color 178. And this comic is the very first appearance of Uncle Scrooge. So if you watch my other videos, one of the things that I always talk about is the fact that my parents would only buy me like Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck and all these kind of gold key comics. So I grew up reading Uncle Scrooge, and I really enjoyed Uncle Scrooge. And this is where Uncle Scrooge made his first appearance. So this is the first appearance of Uncle Scrooge, and I was really excited to get this one, and it's in a high grade. Actually, this is my second copy. I actually got a lower grade, which I ended up giving to my brother for Christmas. So I gave him the crappy one and kept the good one for myself. So when I got the higher one, I gave him the not so good one. But it's still a rare comic. So yeah, it's because he also likes Uncle Scrooge, so I figured he would enjoy it. So this is Uncle Scrooge's first appearance, and also I got Uncle Scrooge's first story, like where he's in the title. And this is, kind of a cool comic because it's first time that Uncle Scrooge is in the title of the comic. And this is 4-color 386. Now, Uncle Scrooge, which is a character I really like, and I actually have one more comic to show. He actually made his first cover appearance on Walt Disney's Vacation Parade #2, and this is him right there, Uncle Scrooge. So this is his first cover appearance. This is a really rare comic that not many people know about, but if you're an Uncle Scrooge fan like I am, this is the one to also look for. It has the first appearance of Uncle Scrooge. So the Bear Mountain one is my favorite of the three because it is that first appearance, and it's just a really great comic in my mind. So with that being said, we'll get into my next one. We're kind of getting to the top few now. This one, and I'll actually take it out of the plastic so you can see it. This one. And this one is kind of like a mixture of multiple things that I really like. I really like the cover. It's, just that kind of, jungle girl cover. And, it's like, some action kind of story going on as well. It has like so many elements just in the cover itself. And it's part of the Seduction of Innocent, I should say, where it has one of the most interesting and almost it's like such a stretch that they added this book to that list, because this book is the one that contains a subliminal message. So it has a subliminal message that was corrupting the minds of kids, and that's what's really cool about it. I just think it's such a cool book, and that's why it's on my top 10 list, because it's got this subliminal message in it. And the subliminal message is that on the shoulder of one of the panels inside, one of the guys inside, they say that it looks like the woman's private parts, just the way it's drawn, that the shading on it looks kind of like her legs and her other parts, her private parts. And it's one of those ones that was considered a very controversial comic and led to the Comic Book Authority. So Comic Code Authority, I should say. And it's kind of like a major comic in terms of history of comics. And for all those reasons, this is a book that I really love. I was so excited to get it. I almost bought a second copy because I was just so excited about it. It's just such a great comic. I almost bought a second copy just because I really like it that much. But the more frugal part of me won out and said, don't buy it. just enjoy the one you have. So I really love this comic. I think I love the artwork. I love the whole history behind it. I love the storytelling. It's just such a great comic. And it's from 1948. So I like that whole historical older comic thing as well. So it's just a really great comic. That's why it's on my list. I'm a big fan of collecting these kind of obscure comics that are like the Seduction of the Innocent books, I'm trying to get the whole collection. Someday I'll have it. I'm halfway there now, so I'm working on it. Now, speaking of books that are controversial, the next one on my list has also its share of controversy, and it's this one. This one is controversial for some obvious reasons, but it's one of those books that is highly misunderstood. A lot of people think that it means something which it doesn't. And I'll read the title. It's Hensi, The Girl Who Loved the Swastika. So it sounds like it's going to be like this Nazi propaganda book where it's promoting Nazism, but it's the exact opposite. It's so basically the story is that this girl, she gets brainwashed by the whole Nazi movement, and in the story she kind of moves away from God, and she embraces the new gods, which is Nazism. And her whole time, like, she keeps on reflecting on it, where her mother's words, like, don't forget your Bible, don't forget your religion, and she kind of reflects upon that and realizes much later that she had gone down this bad road of embracing Nazism. So it's really that whole story, and it's like a whole arc where she later goes on to teach kids about, embracing God over some other kind of false god, I guess. So it's kind of interesting in that way. And this copy is really rare because it's not only a rare comic in general, but this is the first edition from 1973. Normally, when people sell this comic, it's the 1976 edition, which is the second print. So to get it in the first print is really awesome, and to get it in that nice high grade is really awesome too. So this book is super special to me because it's I think it's a great cover. It's one of those Nazi covers, but it's also got Hitler on it. It's got a whole bunch of elements to it. And the piece de resistance on this one, the thing that makes me really love this comic is it's from my birth year. It's from 1973. So I think that's just really great that it's my birth comic. So that's why it's on my top list. And this is I believe this is number 4 on my list. So of my favorite comics, this is number 4. And I just really love it. I usually have this in my office where I can look at it all the time. So I really enjoy looking at this comic. I think it's something so cool about that innocent girl, naive, and just this whole wave of evil in my mind, just sweeping over and taking over her mind. I just think that's really cool. They're just a really great comic. And I'm going to do probably a video just about this comic where I'll read the story, go through the story with you. And that will be a later video because it is really an amazing comic that is highly misunderstood. A lot of people think that it's promoting Nazism, which it does not. So just a really great book. And with that said, we'll get into my final 3, the top 3 comics in my collection that I really love, that I think are really awesome. And we're going to get into another good girl art, because I love good girl art. And this one is Archie number 50. I'm not sure, I'm getting a lot of glare, but hopefully you can see it. And it's the Innuendo cover. So basically Archie called the wrong number, and she's kind of inviting him over to get his money back in some way. So yeah, so it's just a really great cover. It has that Joe Montana artwork in it. It's considered to be the best Archie cover of all time, and it's just a really hot comic. This comic is just skyrocketing now. So I paid $1,500 for it, just to give you a sense of the price. Now it's probably like $2,000 to $3,000. I saw it just sell an auction for like $6,000. So just a really great comic, really hard to find in a high grade. Any of these Archie ones, they always got beaten up. They would just be treated really poorly because they were cartoon comics. People didn't take them seriously. They were just generally beaten up. And it's from the early 50s. It's from 1951. So it's like a 70-year-old comic. And, it's in, my copy isn't, not a high grade, but it's, a 4.0. It's a good grade. So the main reason I bought this one was it presents really well. It really does show that the good old cover. I think it's really important that when you get a comic for the cover, that the cover shows well. And it would be very sad if it didn't show well. It'd be like, oh, you'd be always sort of disappointed. So when I got this, I was very happy with it because it just really shows nicely. It presents very well. This is another one that I usually display in my office that I can look at all the time. I try to make sure, again, I get comments where people say, oh, you got to be careful about the sunlight. Again, I have my office set up in such a way where I don't get any direct light into my office. So I protect my comics at all times. I'm very, very paranoid about it too. I don't want them to fade. So, yeah, it's just one of my favorite comics. This is number 4 on my list. Now, number 3 is kind of an interesting one. Or number 2, I should say. Oh, so we're at the final 3. That was number 3, sorry. This is another Warren Publishing. And this one is really obscure. It's Heidi Shay. Now, if you collect Warren, like I do, this magazine / it's kind of not really a comic, but it is a comic magazine. This comic magazine was offered in the back pages. Now, Heidi Shay is this girl on the cover. And I believe she was like 12 or 13. So it kind of had this really weird, a little bit pedophilic element to it. Because this girl, she would kind of wear these really skimpy clothes. And she would go to all the cons, the major conventions in New York, wearing super skimpy clothes. She would dress up like Vampirella. And in this, she's dressed up like what's the movie? Like 100,000 years BC or something like that, where she's kind of like dressed as like a cave woman. And it's just one of those comics where there's a lot of controversy about it, but it's really hard to find. This is like one of those comics you'll see once in a blue moon. Now, there's actually a guy that's selling one on eBay, and it's been there for the longest time, and he wants a lot for it because it's a really rare comic, and there's not that many collectors that know about it, but it is a really hard one to find, and it took me years, literally years of searching for it because it was one of those comics where I collected all of the Warren Publishing, and it was the one that eluded me. It was the one that was that one that always would get away. I just never could get it. I even went to New York. I flew to New York, spent a month in New York looking for this comic. And I was talking to everybody in the comic industry in New York. Like I was pretty young at the time. I was like in my 20s, no, not even my 20s. I was in my, I was 19, 20 range. I was pretty young. And I would just go to every single comic shop in New York and ask, do you know Warren Publishing? Do you know about Heidi Shay and all this kind of stuff? And fortunately in New York, because Warren Publishing was produced in New York, a lot of the comic shops knew about Warren. And I was able to go from one comic shop to the next comic shop, and they sort of like on this wild goose chase to find this comic. And eventually, I was led to this one artist's house. He was actually one of the artists from Warren. And I went to this guy's house. He had like an amazing collection, like original art and all this amazing stuff. Like probably some of his stuff is like worth millions now. But, and he had one copy of this book. And I was like, oh, finally, I'm going to get it, and I asked him, are you willing to sell it? Would you be, willing to, part with it? And how much would you want for it? And he was like, no, I'm not going to sell it. He wouldn't sell it to me. I was like, what the heck? After all that searching for a month, combing the streets, I went through all the different boroughs in New York, went everywhere trying to get this comic. And the one time I found it, he wouldn't sell it to me. He would not sell it. And I said, hey, I'll offer you X dollars, and I offered him a fair amount of money for it, and he wouldn't sell it. He wouldn't sell it. So I was like, oh man, after all that. So later, I would stalk eBay and just constantly search for it. And eventually there was a guy that had it for sale. And he didn't know what it was, and it was in awesome condition. And I said, hey, would you go, and he basically had it for like $50. $50. And I actually think it included like a Vampirella #1. It included some other awesome things. But this was what I wanted. And it was like $50. And it was like, wow, for a book that normally goes for 1,000 to 2,000, it was like to get it for $50. And after having searched for so many years for it, it was really great to finally get it at an affordable price too. So this one is just one of my grails, because it is just such a hard book to find, and it has such a cool story behind it. I could almost do like a whole video series just on this one book, because it's a crazy story that goes behind this book. I even have there was a poster that was offered of Heidi Shay, where it's like this full 6 foot tall poster of this young girl wearing some skimpy clothing. So it's like just a really obscure, kind of cool comic, and it's just one that I really like. Heidi Shay #1. It was a one shot, and it was very rare. You could only get it by ordering it from the back pages of Warren Publishing, and not many people did because it was such a weird comic. I think there's less than 500 in the world, and most of them were destroyed. So very rare, very cool comic. Okay, so my #1. And if you've sort of gotten the theme, there is a bit of a theme here, that I really liked Warren Publishing. And their kind of most famous comic that people still collect to this day is Vampirella. And this was her first appearance. So this is Vampirella #1 from Warren Publishing from 1969. And the artist that did this is Frank Frazetta. And it is just one of those key comics that any Warren collector has to have. It's just like the comic. And it has like her like a little bit of an origin story, not much of one, but it's it's just a really great comic, and really just beautiful artwork. Like Frank Frazetta is truly a master. He was producing stuff like he did the original Ghost Rider. He did so many comics way back in the 40s and 50s. And this, to me, was kind of like that pinnacle for me of his artwork, where he just captured Vampirella so well. And I just, it's just so great. Like she's standing on a skull. It's just got that full moon in the background. It's got like, you can sort of see the hint of the bat wings, where she might turn into a bat. It has like so many elements to it, and it's just so well done. So this is my ultimate grail. One of my, like, I would say maybe my top 3 comics of all time, because of the fact that I really do like Vampirella. She is my favorite character. It's sort of a battle between her and Wonder Woman. So I would say like my Wonder Woman might be my favorite comic, but that was on my previous top 50 list, so I couldn't include it here. But this comic to me is like definitely in my top 3, and it's just such a great comic. It's her first appearance. It's just got so many things going on with it, and it's just amazing artwork. So that's it. So what I have to show you is to show you how much I love Vampirella. I'm going to show you some of the cool things that I got that are associated. I even got, I should almost take it out. So in the back pages of Warren, they would offer different things. Like you could buy, they would even sell clothing. So this is an original from the back pages of Warren t-shirt you could get. And it is so cheaply made. It is like paper thin, and it's just so poorly made. And it's from 1972, this t-shirt. And, it's in pretty good shape considering, how old it is. and the quality was not there. But it's just a great shirt. And this is one of the things that they offered. And I'm going to show you some more things. I even have her fan club button. This is the button that you could get from Vampirella. And I have 2 fan club cards. These are from the 70s. You could see like there's 2 variations to the fan club card. I'm not sure which one was first, but these are the 2 cards, with that you could join up for the Vampirella fan club. And then I have this, which is a decal you could get. You could order this. I think it was 99 cents at the time. Now it's about $100. So it's a decal you could get, and you could stick a Vampirella onto your car or something like that. So this was kind of cool. And another awesome thing that you could get in the back pages of Warren Publishing, and I actually mentioned this on the Captain and Comics show, and I had to show this because it's just such a cool item related to Vampirella, related to all this Warren Publishing that I've been talking about. It's this, and I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but what you could order, and this is how the ad would look. Okay, the ad would be like you could order. Let's see. Let me read the ad a bit. For $9.95, this is back in the 70s, so you can imagine that's a lot of money. You could order a real Dracula dirt pendant, and this was actual dirt, supposedly, from Transylvania that they put in this little plasticky, crappy pendant. It's like it is just really cheap the way they made it. And it's like on a gold chain, like gold plated, obviously. And it was really like one of these kind of obscure things that they would offer in the back pages of Warren Publishing, where you could get this Dracula dirt pendant. And, this is the ad, the original ad. And then it would even come with a certificate of authenticity. So this was a rare piece, basically. There was only 5,000 of these necklaces made. I have like 3 of them. but it was just one of those things where you could order it for $9.95. You could get it from the back pages of Warren. This necklace with real Dracula dirt. So just really great. I love those kind of obscure things. And a couple more things I want to show for my Vampirella collection from Warren is this. This is I think this was from Aurora, and it was like a little figurine that you could order. And this one the guy did it professionally, where he painted it all. Normally it doesn't come painted. It's all like just like no paint. So I had it where it was done professionally. And this was like 99 cents at the time. It's like, it's just like a little plastic figurine that you could get. And it was just really, really cool. And it has like the bat. Finding it with the bat is actually quite hard. So this is my model. And normally when you get it, it would come in this box. So I have the original box as well. And it has even the instructions on how to make the model. So I have 2 of them. One that's completely done and one that's undone. So this is the original Vampirella box from Aurora. And you could basically, it would even have like this torture scene that you could make. Or, well, you could pretend, but it didn't really include it. It even had like, Girl in the Cage and Frankenstein's monster and stuff. So, these were all cool things that I collected from Warren. I pretty much got everything that they ever made. So that's my top 10 of my top 50 list. And I hope that all these extra items really, was a sort of a grand finale of this series. I hope you enjoyed the whole series. I recommend you check out the other parts. I will link them in the description. Also, I'll link to my top 50 where I just show the comics really, really fast, and you can see them there. what I'd like to do just before I finish this video is just, I want to give a shout out to like Alex, the comic book hoarder. He was the one that sort of got me into producing these lists. And I would like to shout out to Comic Tom and Gem Mint and a bunch of others. There's like a whole bunch of comic guys out there. I want to say, hey guys, do the same thing. I'd love to see the same kind of videos from other people's collections. I'd love to see what their favorite comics of all time are from their collections, that the ones that they wouldn't part with. Like, I don't want to see comics that they're specking on and all this kind of stuff. I want to see the comics that they truly love and that they would never part with. So I hope to see those kind of videos. If you have a video which, you know, where you show your top favorite things in your collection, it doesn't have to be the most expensive. Like, a lot of these ones that I showed aren't the most expensive in my collection. They're just ones that I really love. I would like to see that. So link it in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the subs, and thanks for everything. Bye.